My videos are numbering on 122. It's a bit odd because I thought about this maybe a month ago and I've been working up the courage to say it, but I've never actually really introduced myself in terms of the channel, the YouTube channel, etc., etc. And I know in the age of YouTube, you don't really have to introduce yourself. People just understand it's volatile and it's democratic, and there needs to be no pillars in terms of concrete identities, etc., etc. Some things that you think are acts are actually real, and some things that are real are actually acts. So we live in a post-fact age and blah blah blah. So I mean, credentials don't really matter in the world of YouTube, and I think we all know that to a certain extent. But saying that, I think there are a lot of people on YouTube that, while they don't have these long drawn out introductions before every video they do, you know who they are and you know what their credentials are, etc., etc. But for me, I've never actually explicitly stated them. I've never actually said, this is who I am, this is where I came from, blah blah blah. And so maybe it's a bit of a throw up, or it's in the air and blah blah blah. So I thought maybe I should do a video just explaining who I am, and I hope I don't have a lot of confidence in myself, but I hope this video actually gets buried in the other 122 videos that are just out there. I don't have a lot of viewers, so it's not like I'm making some grand controversial character or blah 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 blah. So I'll just start with the country of origin, which is Trinidad and Tobago. It's a twin island country. British colonialist, former British colonial country. So if you happen to hear some class in my voice, it's probably because of the British. The British did it all. Now, it's not to say that I have any tangible form of class. It's just to say that I think when you grow up in British colonies, or what used to be British colonies, you have that English aristocrat, almost royal feeling somewhere in there when you're speaking in formally, that just really introduces itself. And it's not that you're saying that you are royalty, but I think with colonialism, if we've learned anything from the Indians, you end up with this class and this education and this way of speaking that seems really classy. But it's not to say that you are actually part of the 1% or whatever. But it's just to say that I think there's a translation that happens there with former colonials that come from European legacy. Spanish, English, whatever. I mean, I'm sure this concept exists in some of the former Spanish colonies as well, when it comes to language and dialects and accents and things like that. So you end up with so that's me. That's basically saying that if you hear a little bit of classiness in my voice or a bit of intelligence or whatever it is, it's not because I'm putting it on. That's just how I am. Especially having to speak formally, or what I consider formally, since I moved to Canada. I moved to Canada in 1996, and I noticed right away that everybody was speaking proper English. And if I pulled from my schoolboy days, in terms of how I talk, it definitely came from the British way of speaking, right? The Queen's English. And I think maybe that's, again, with the classiness stuff, I think that's maybe why that kind of rushes itself in there. So that's where that comes from. Now, I'm also university educated. I spent 4 years at Ryerson University in Toronto studying for a BFA, and it was in image arts, new media. So I do have a university degree, and I think a lot of where my philosophical leanings are on life are from understanding the world through art. I believe in the value of art. Just as a side, I never really followed through with my degree in terms of career and making money and things like that. But obviously 4 years of a university degree changes anyone, or even just exacerbates your existing qualities, etc., etc. And I think art is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Just this is kind of related, but just a few moments ago, just a couple hours ago, I was going through all these old folders of all this art I created when I had a massive mental breakdown in 2012. And it really is amazing the stuff that comes out of like mental incongruence or cognitive dissonance when it comes to reevaluating your life and what you did and blah 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 blah. So I think art has a really therapeutic value that a lot of people don't see. Art is definitely the crazy man's way of exploring himself, and I think a lot of people need to be more involved in the creation of artwork, because otherwise your mind just goes idle, and etc., etc., and you end up picking up weird shit like atheism, ha 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 ha. But no. In all honesty, I came to atheism after a mental breakdown, like I said, in 2012, and I really just kind of like settled into atheism. Like I love reading and I love books, kind of. I would love to read. What I'm trying to say is I would love to be reading more than I actually do right now. But the artwork thing is important too, and I think it really influenced me in terms of my philosophical understanding, and atheism may have influenced me more on the analytical understanding of life. So, but yeah, that's where I'm coming from. I don't think I left anything out. I mean, except for my career in new media, which never really materialized or came to fruition. But otherwise, that's kind of it. That's my life. I mean, there's lots of issues I'd love to discuss, like say mental illness. It's one of those things that's been on my mind. I thought maybe I should start a separate blog just for issues surrounding mental illness and what that is, etc., etc. But I'm not there yet. Like I just can't bring myself to openly discuss my mental illness with people. I'm bipolar, by the way, so I mean, I think there's a tendency for people to umbrella all these terms in terms of mental illness and like, oh, just crazy, blah blah blah. But I think it's much more complex, and I think psychiatry and psychology have a lot to say about the myriad of experiences of mental health patients and people who experience mental health issues. Anyway, so that's all. That's my introduction video. Maybe I should put this as the featured video on my YouTube channel, but I won't. I just felt like I should make some introduction. But yeah, that's about it. Okay, bye.